Welcome to the Holistic Pathway Podcast, unscripted conversations on mind, body, spirit, and entrepreneurship, a new video series podcast where we dive deep into the holistic integration of life and business. I am Tammy Coyne, your holistic alchemist, helping you change pain into possibilities and possibilities into purpose. Today's chat is with Dylan Dunford. And Dylan began his healing journey in 2017 when he obtained his Reiki Master Attunement. From there, he began his extensive journey into learning plant medicines ranging from aromatherapy to herbalism. Dylan is now a licensed massage therapist and nationally certified aromatherapist through NAHA. And Dylan runs and operates Dunford Apothecary in Norman, Oklahoma, a small batch apothecary where he formulates products that intertwine tried and true herbal remedies with New World knowledge and practices. I'm so excited to connect with Dylan today, and I hope you enjoy today's conversation. Well, hello, Dylan. It's so good to see you. I am always delighted when I see somebody I've actually met in person, because so many of the people I have on the podcast, we've never had the opportunity to meet. And I was thinking, my gosh, I think we met in like 2017-ish at a spirit fair. And you were reading tarot and I was reading toes.
Yes, yes, yes. I love that. And it's so funny because I tell so many people about that toe reading. Let me tell you. It was by far probably one of the most interesting readings that I've ever had. And I'd share it with everybody when I do, but that was our first time meeting, 2017. Yeah,
Can you believe?
that was my first introduction like into offering anything like that to the public or like in a spirit fair setting like that. So lots of great connections that first time.
Yeah, and you did such a great job. I remember you were so cute and your eyes were just so bright. And I think people were coming to sit at your table just because you were precious. I really do think that. So that I think that really served you quite well.
Well,
So,
I appreciate that.
so the fact that, I mean, we have just been through, I mean, in 7 years, I think we've both well, we're both from Oklahoma, and then we've both left there, came back. You're back there again.
Right.
I'm gone
I'm back here
again.
again. Yes. It's been an adventure going around. We took when COVID hit, I ended up moving all the way out to Florida for just a bit. And my journey kind of took like a little halt.
Yeah.
My own self, and my healing journey I didn't realize was fixing to take a whole nosedive. It was all for the better, you know. I'm here on the literally the other side of it, back with family, back where I grew up. And I literally am living in the home and purchasing the home that like my great grandparents built in the 50s.
Wow.
And all of my family has lived in.
That's correct. That's amazing. I've moved over 100 times in my life. My mother has moved so many times. I can't even imagine what it's like to have that kind of energy and connection in a home. I mean, that's amazing.
You will definitely have to come out sometime. The energy in this home is very intense. There's a lot of different mediums or psychics that won't even step foot in the house,
Mm.
let alone on the property. Um, I've had some pretty weird experiences here. My grandfather passed away in the home here, and we always say he definitely watches over the house still. You can hear him at nighttime walking on the floors. Occasionally you'll smell his cologne through the house. And trust, it's been a long time, you know.
That's interesting because is your house in Norman?
It is.
Okay, because when I moved back to Oklahoma in 2020, I moved to Norman and I had never lived in Norman before. And I was living in a house that at that time was 98 years old. And I'm wondering if we were maybe close together because where I was at was I was just really east of Campus Corner. And
Okay.
I was not I was fairly close to the railroad tracks and not far from Porter.
Yes. I'm literally a spitting distance away from the railroad tracks. I'm actually closer towards the high school. I'm right off of Main Street.
Okay.
Um, so it's right off the highway, right off of Main Street, but it's within pretty close distance. Yeah.
Well, the house that I lived in was in a historic district,
Yeah.
and it was a beautiful home, and I had some spirit activity there too. In fact, I broke my arm when I lived in that house, and or my shoulder, and I'm quite certain I was pushed down the stairs.
Oh, okay.
Um, so I fell down the basement stairs twice, and it took me a while to figure, because I'm like, what's the deal with the falling down the stairs, right? Like
Right.
I had just moved from Arizona and I'd been living in an upstairs apartment. Like, what's the deal with falling down the stairs?
Right.
And
Right.
I had a bathtub that was like a clawfoot bathtub. And there were multiple times that I felt like I was getting pushed in the bathtub. And then the day that I broke my shoulder. And what's interesting is I had done clearing in the house. And I
Mhm.
had even said, I know there are spirits here. I can feel you. And I just want to say, hey,
Right.
I'm not here to cause harm. It's all good. And this stuff just kept happening. And after I broke my shoulder, I got mad and I said, now listen here. I've
Yeah.
been, I've been, I've been kind, and now you've
Right.
pissed me off. You are no longer welcome here, and you better knock this crap off. And
Yeah.
I didn't have another issue. I lived there for another like 7 months or so. I never had another issues.
Right.
So I feel you with the spirit activities.
We've had a lot of crazy stuff. My dad came back home from living in Georgia for a bit, and he was staying in the spare bedroom where I had had many people come and stay, and had countless people leave during the middle of the night because of, rasping on the door. I had one girlfriend who had literally was laying in bed and felt and saw somebody lay next to her in the bed. But when my dad was asleep in bed, the railing came completely detached from the headboard, and the box spring and mattress fell through. Mind you, he's a big man, and that bed is not light. So it is crazy how much, spirit activity can go on when they're like displeased, I always say, in a sense. Sometimes that's kind of a joking manner though.
So do you think the spirits in your house, I mean, since it's been in your family for a long time, do you think it's all family or do you think it's other something else?
I do think it's all family. I have personally had experience with just spirit on the property itself
Mm-hmm.
that stay outside of the home. I had one gentleman, I say gentleman because he gave off a very male energy and presence, that would kind of hang out like on our side yard. And I could always, at like around 7 p.m., 8 p.m., is when I'd feel him come around and he'd come just looking through the window, making sure everything's good. And then he'd continue his little walk.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but my dad has had a girlfriend who was a psychic medium, and she said it was like energy just funneled through the house.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, there were just people that would constantly be passing through, and it just would like keep her up at night. It made her uncomfortable. It just wasn't, necessarily a place she wanted to be. But I've also come to find some very esoteric and old world Masonic, relics, I guess you would say, that just happen to be left down from one generation or the other, astronomy charts. My great grandmother had a affinity for some of the more esoteric things.
Interesting. I wonder, um, because that area over there is very historical, and so it would be interesting. I did a little deep dive, not too deep, but a little deep dive into kind of what had been going on in that area. Because again, that house is now over 100 years old. So what had been happening prior to that? And Oklahoma, of course, was Indian territory before it became Oklahoma. And then considering past lives and things like that. So it's all very interesting. And probably most of the houses I lived in Oklahoma, and I lived all over the place, had some sort of activity.
Right.
Um,
The land is very active here, just
uh-huh,
anywhere within this region of Oklahoma. I always had said that when you start getting out towards like the Mustang area, I had lived out that way before, it gives off a different energy.
it
Uh,
does.
it's a lot, I don't want to say darker, but it seems as those who practice within that area, for whatever reason it may be, it doesn't seem like it's of the highest.
Yeah.
It definitely vibrates a little bit lower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and I have a friend who actually does spirit releasement, and she does spirit releasement for people and also for properties and things like that. And it was actually when she and I met for the very first time, 2014. We met in a parking lot. We knew each other online, but we had never met in person. And she actually saw that I had a spirit attachment. And that was the first time that she recognized she had the gift to be able to do that.
Right.
So it's very interesting, the things that we bring together and bring out. And so you had talked about, you said your healing journey. How did you say that? Your healing journey had come to kind of a
I like it.
standstill or a
I like a
halt?
nose dive.
Nosedive. So
Uh,
what happened there?
Um, so for me, I had so many things going on in my life at the time. Just trying to find my placement in the world. Like, where
Yeah.
do I belong? What do I do? Um, and I had bounced back and forth from thing to thing. This wasn't it, that wasn't it. I didn't want to waste my time or money
Yeah.
investing into a college degree when I felt that didn't really serve me best. Um, and I went and kind of got myself into healthcare and realized my passion for people.
Yeah.
But I kind of put myself on pause, and that's where everything kind of took a nosedive. Where when I stopped, I kind of like, I don't know, I gave everything into work, and I was working night shift, and so I worked all night, slept all day. I'd go to the gym, that was there, but like the self-care internally and the mental care and the emotional care was not there.
Yeah.
It was absent. And I tried for it and I tried, but I felt this like stagnancy. I felt this stagnant energy within myself. I felt like I was holding on to something that just wasn't serving me best anymore. And I came to a point where I was like, okay, I had been really medicated through seeing a psychologist and a therapist. And I was like, this just isn't working. It's like, I say it was, but it was like half working. It's
Hmm.
like, it wasn't the right thing for me. It wasn't either the right medication or it just wasn't it. But I was diagnosed with type 2 bipolar disorder. Um, I was, told that I had chronic depression and anxiety, PTSD, and I finally came to a point where I was like, okay, I don't want to be stuck taking the pills anymore. It came to a point where it was difficult to get refills for some of my medications. Um, or even just getting an appointment to see some of my doctors because of how overpopulated that area really was and
Mm-hmm.
how limited insurance kept me. Um, and so I started going and seeing out of pocket a Chinese medicine doctor. One of our good friends was, going to school, and she was in her clinicals, and I was like, okay, this is going to be a great opportunity. I can go experience acupuncture and Chinese medicine. She gets to work on, a lot of the more the cases that she's looking to deal with the, mental health and everything like that. And Chinese medicine and acupuncture literally changed my life. Like, when I say that stagnancy,
Mm-hmm.
she stuck a couple needles in me one day, and I was freaking bawling my eyes out. I was holding in so much crap.
Mm-hmm.
And it really allowed me to come back to a base value of me. Um, and that's kind of the best thing that I really enjoyed about it, was that I'm not stuck taking those herbs anymore. I'm not stuck taking those remedies anymore. I'm not stuck to taking anything. One
Mm-hmm.
thing I'm stuck to is taking my frankincense oil, and that's about it, you know. But that's just a personal preference, that's what I come to enjoy as a support for my mental health, and it's making sure you're eating right, making sure that you're getting outside, get some sunlight, get your feet in the grass, get some circulation in your body, get your heart pumping, sweat, perspire, allow your body to do everything that it
Release.
needs to. Make sure you're not caking your arms in aluminum filled deodorant with
Mhm.
synthetics. Whether you purchase from a natural, and even some of the natural stuff nowadays, you
Yeah.
have to be careful.
Well, you do, because guess who started buying up those companies? Yeah. So
Yes,
totally.
that's
Yeah, I know.
it's it's
It's a shit
crazy.
show. It
It's
is.
a shit show. Yes.
And people who are not practitioners, it's like, who is the best marketing coming at your face? Because in order to actually get real information, to figure out what's conscious, to figure out what's actually healthy instead of healthy, it's maddening. And I don't know how people are even navigating all of that, because it's a mess.
So, and this is a little different,
Yep.
but I'm going to throw it in here because I think some of your viewers might like this,
Throw it.
and I
Throw
think
it.
you'll like it. I was with my education that I received for massage therapy. It was a
Mhm.
very holistic education, and we learned, and our primary learning was German New Medicine. Have you heard of that?
Not by that name. Tell
Okay.
me more.
So German New Medicine was essentially founded, if you will, in around the 1980s by a German oncologist who was doing brain scans and ended up getting cancer himself, and was able to correlate the psychosomatic connection between your body, trauma, how it's stored in the body, where it's stored in the brain,
Yeah.
and essentially how these traumas are programs that are continuously running within your body. And when
This
you
is my
understand how,
work.
yes, and so when you understand how these programs are running, then you can see where somebody is actually at within their healing phase,
Mhm.
or they're they're stuck in maybe we call it I don't know why I can't think of it, um like a hanging healing,
Yeah.
or like it's you're like kind of in a crisis state where you keep looping through the trauma.
Kind of
You
in limbo.
limbo,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and a lot of the times what ends up happening is, we have things like cancer. But what Dr. Hammer essentially kind of teaches through his findings is that all of these things are actually set in place as programs for our bodies to heal and
Hmm.
to support saving ourselves. It's a kind of like when you go into fight or flight, it's really just, okay, the body is saving itself at this time. And if you don't deal with that, you're going to continue to loop through some of this stuff. Or if you hold emotions in certain ways, then you may be dealing with cancer in a different way than somebody else.
100%. I have a master's degree in counseling and was on track to become a licensed professional counselor, and I opted to go the holistic route. So I did 60 hours of education plus 3 internships, but I didn't go on for the supervision part. Then I ended up at a healing arts school. But then once my spiritual awakening happened and the different downloads and things that I got, or things that I didn't know before, however, with my own healing journey, part of what started when all of my diagnosis started back in like 2002, I began looking into the mind-body connection.
Mhm.
And so what I sort of walk people through is the mind-body connection, mindfulness, mindset, and then manifest. And that's part of where I come up with pain into possibilities and possibilities into purpose, because so often people can't even see that there are possibilities. Because really, in the work that I do, I have likened the body so many times to a memory foam mattress that remembers everything, whether you do or not. I talk about unhealed emotions like they're splinters that just sort of lay there dormant, and then things start kind of tapping at them. And the underlying root emotional causes for all of these things that are called diagnosis of whatever, bipolar or cancer or liver or whatever is going on. Let's look at the emotional roots of that
Yes.
typically happen from the time you're in utero until you're about 7 years old, right? And then once you're able to heal that, then things start to evolve on their own. I think it's connected to addictions. I think it's connected to virtually anything. And if you can heal that part of it, then everything else starts to evolve for you. And it's fabulous. And there's all these different pieces. It's just like spirituality. It's like there's all these religions, and then if you look at all these religions from a different vantage point, you step out of it and you look, and then you look at spirituality, you see the commonalities all across the board. It's like everyone is essentially saying, not everyone, the same thing, but using different words. And I really think that has to do, and I've talked about this podcast in this way too. I think as healers, practitioners, that kind of thing, that we have voices that are of a certain frequency, and our people are clued into that frequency. So let's say you and I said the exact same thing. They may resonate with you, what you said, but may not resonate with what I said. And it's just connected to the frequency of what is the two of them need to resolve in this lifetime.
Right.
So I think that's amazing. And I love that you were given that as part of your training. I love that.
And it's so funny, Tammy, because I resisted it. I resisted the hell out of it. I was like, what the fuck is this? I was like, this is not science. And it took me a long time. It took me a long time to just have a stand back approach in view to it. And there's a lot of it that I feel is super beneficial to a lot of people's healing journey.
Yeah.
Whether they're going through some sort of autoimmune condition, whether they're going through some sort of trauma, traumatic stress, whether they're going through cancer, diabetes, even. There are so many of these programs, as Dr. Hummer calls them, that, like you said, when they find that right frequency or that right thing that kind of fills in and allows us to resolve what that issue is, then the program can then continue to run and will allow it to complete and finish off just as like a computer program, because you are made up of millions of little computers,
Well, That's exactly it. And the thing about it is, and I even say this like about kids who are young now and whatever, they came in with different software. They have different software. And for those of us who are here, it's like this upgrade, that needs to happen. Well, if you've got an old like, eight
Right.
track deck or whatever, your MP3 is not going to work in the 8 track, right? So you've got to either evolve or you don't. And I see that within us as well. And the thing is, in the work I do, I believe trauma is at the root of all of it.
Yeah.
And it's so fascinating that people feel like whatever diagnosis or whatever symptoms they're having, it's like that becomes their identity. And often they don't recognize that there's actually potentially another option for them, and it's like you said, the first time someone put an essential oil in my hand, I was like, what is this voodoo crap? That's literally what I said. Like, what is this? And it changed my life,
Yeah.
and I was someone who had a spreadsheet of diagnoses. The pharmacy literally knew me by voice, by face, and I take zero medication over the counter or prescription. And, I just believe that, and again, this may not be the right path for everyone, but for me, and it sounds like for you, it was like, okay, I'm done. I'm done with this mainstream way of doing things,
Right. Because it's not working. That's what keeps people sick. That's what keeps people coming back. And it's
Well, or this cure causes something else, and
right.
then that causes it's like a constant game of whack-a-mole,
Yeah, it is. And
you know.
it's genuinely pulling people out of the matrix
Yeah,
and getting people to pull themselves out of the matrix because you can't do it for them. You can hold space for them. You can give them all of the resources that they possibly need to succeed within that. But like you said, every person's going to take it different, whether you say it or I say it or somebody else across the world says it in a different language, you
yeah,
know. It genuinely is this resonance that we're all picking up on, that if
absolutely.
you are receptive to it and you're tuned in to that right channel, then you can offer and bring a different layer of healing that others don't, and I just say it's not that they can't, but
Yeah.
it's just that they don't. And
Well, and I think we all have different pieces of different puzzles, you know what I mean? And that's why I was so excited when I had people from different states that wanted to be on the podcast, but also different countries.
right.
Because if someone is interested in the holistic healing or holistic pathway, or they don't even know where to start, because that's the thing, it feels like this secret world, right? That if you don't know what to Google, well, then you have no idea how to find it, And so that was another thing that I wanted to bring. There's so many different people who do different things. And even if they do the same thing, they bring different awarenesses to it, different experiences to it.
But
And, I may know, let's say 5 people that do massage. We'll give that as an example. And maybe each one has a little something special. And I need this one on that day and this one on another day, and,
yeah, it is.
and I love the fact that, and not all of the holistic community is like this, because it's important for people to recognize who is out to do harm and who is out to do no harm, and to be able to pick your right people. Because I really feel like the ones who are out to really make a difference in the world, there's not a competition thing. It's not, nobody's competing with anybody else. We truly want the best for our client. And that might mean something I can do for them, or it might mean, hey, I know so and so, and I think they might be a good fit. Check them out.
Referrals are so important.
Yeah.
I do not offer prenatal massage. I don't feel as if I've had that appropriate time spent, dealing with not only the base knowledge of pregnancy itself. But it's something we're working on, you know.
Yeah.
I always refer out for prenatal massage. It's not something that I offer. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but and that's the thing, is knowing what is your skill and what is your base, you know, niche, if you will, that
Yeah.
you offer, you know. And it may be that you have these couple little side things that make your practice, but what is your base value, you know? And for for me at least, I end up attracting a lot of people who have trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because I believe personally that I come from trauma, and I can understand it, I can see it. You have to go through hell in order to help people walk through it.
Yeah.
You and that old saying for healers really is true. If you haven't walked it yourself and you haven't done it yourself, it's going to be really difficult. You're going to really struggle
Mm-hmm.
bringing people through it, you know? And I think there are so many that end up kind of jumping into a spiritual journey or path to help others when they haven't even tried to help themselves,
Mm-hmm.
you
I
know?
have
And
called these people Spiritual Steve and Spiritual Susie. Because I said it's like, oh, I'm going to be a healer, and I got the t-shirt. And no, no, and it's like in the mainstream, one of the cash cows, if you will, was gastric bypass. And so, and I've had gastric bypass back in 2006. And the reason I bring this up, because once doctors realized this was a cash cow for them, you had everybody and their dog jumping on the bariatric surgery bandwagon,
yeah,
and a whole lot of people died.
yeah,
And so that's why it's important to do your own research in what you're doing and make sure that you feel in your heart that this is your person.
yeah.
And with holistic healing, you've got a lot of people out there who, again, there might be people who have dark intentions, or
Mhm.
who have harmful intentions. You've got people who don't know what the hell they're doing, you know,
That
and
part, that part, that is so important. Be educated, you know, be educated in what you're doing. Have a passion for what you're doing. If you do not have a passion for that, you know, maybe that's not your thing. And that's totally okay.
well, and I don't even feel like formal, as in mainstream education, has to happen, because there are, again, with an awakening, you can get downloads and past lives opening up where you've got, that happened very similar in mine, where I've got things that I didn't have before. It's like, where'd that come from? But what's important for the person who's seeking a healer or seeking a practitioner is, one, do you really feel in your heart of hearts that this is the person that can walk with you on your journey?
Right,
If there is something about this person and you're like, something just doesn't feel right,
right.
listen to that. And I did a video about fear not long ago. And one of the things about that is to recognize, is it fear where you're like, ooh, this is uncomfortable, I'm stepping out of my comfort zone, or ooh, this is going to grow me, and it's uncomfortable? Or is it like, warning, this person is not for you, walk away?
Right, right.
There's a difference. There's a real strong difference in that.
Yeah.
So, and I love that you've moved into the apothecary thing. I think that is so fun. I'm
Thank
so
you.
excited. So, how what was your spark that got you going that direction?
You know, I I hate to say I don't know what it was. I genuinely was looking to offer something that wasn't, you know, because I was going for nursing. I genuinely had gotten all of my college education up to the nursing education portion. And I even took my microbiology course. I took my AMP2. I made sure I was prepared, you know,
Mhm.
and it just was not resonating with me anymore. That I just was like, I sat in healthcare for almost 4 years as a phlebotomist, you know, working with a wide range of people, especially in Florida where I was located. And it wasn't the services that I wanted to offer this world because I knew that I had more to offer.
Yeah.
And the apothecary aspect really kind of intertwined when I started looking at, essential oils, and I was like, how am I going to make my products um, really affordable for me to make, but also affordable for other people? Because it got to the point where I was like, well, how much I was charging for a drop is what I'm able to charge for a whole milliliter of oil now, you know, uh,
Hmm.
by sourcing straight from distillers and farmers that are small and really just these small projects across the globe. A lot of the times they're family owned for generations at some of them.
Hmm.
And some of them are fairly new, but they are producing really superior product. And it's absolutely blowing my mind that the herbs themselves and some of the byproducts like hydrosols aren't more widely offered, aren't more widely taught about, um, just because of the potential that they hold at such a lower, use. You don't have to use as much as you really think or as much as you're told that you have to use.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the biggest things is like I'm always reaching for a hydrosol. If I get a burn, I'm gonna grab some lavender hydrosol before I grab the lavender oil, honestly. And that's just because hydrosols and essential oils are obtained a little differently. There's a different process for how the hydrosol is made. And when a company takes the time to do that process versus just selling the byproduct of the essential oil like that,
Hmm.
it makes the difference on how you use that product. Calendula was the first herb that I was really introduced to. Herbalism had been here and there and here and there for me since I was little. uh, I remember my grandmother had gotten me an Amazon gift card when Amazon first came out, and I don't even think maybe it was an Amazon gift card. It was probably a Visa gift card. And when
Yeah.
Amazon had first came out, and you could purchase books, I had bought, and I can't even remember the name of the gentleman, but it was like the tried and true starter to herbalism and growing your own herbs and how to properly dry and when to pull, when to harvest, how to make a poultice, how to make a salve, how to make a syrup, how to make an elixir, how to make a tincture. And that's my first introduction was when I was super young.
Hmm.
These
Wow.
are crafts, and for me, it is a craft. It is an art form in the way that you learn and grow with it because you learn from the plant medicine.
Hmm.
Dandelion was really the first herb that I was ever like in because that's what grew here. It grew in the grass. So I was out there harvesting my dandelion and my leaves and the actual root itself. And now I know better, now I know about pesticide and things like that.
Yeah.
Um, but it really comes down to knowing how to extract those properties out, especially within herbalism and with the apothecary. I have a proprietary extraction process that I utilize for all of my herbs in most of my products. And I do a alcohol soluble like extraction prior to, and it helps to break down the cell walls of the plant because
Hmm.
when you learn biology or you take high school biology, you learn that that cell wall is a little bit different. But alcohol will actually help to break that down, and that's when you have a tincture. So we're kind of taking these separate principles and intertwining them and creating these products that other people aren't making. We offer the essentially it's a full spectrum, if you will, whereas most people are just gonna put it in the oil, let it sit for a couple weeks or to up to a month or two, and they'll pull it out. No. We want to get out as much as we possibly can from that herb so that way we're getting the full benefit.
I
You know?
love this for you. It's very exciting. I don't know if you knew this. After when I first moved here in 2014, we didn't know each other yet, but I was newly married and my husband at the time, we both ended up in a healing arts school, and he was actually on the track for herbalism. He ended up graduating as an herbalist. And so one of the programs through the school that I go to here in Arizona is herbalism. And so I was learning a lot of that through him. And then our marriage ended up dissolving. And so I had to rework the business because that was going to be part of our business too.
Mhm.
We were going to bring our skills together, and we had both done holistic nutrition. We had both became holistic nutrition specialists, and so he is that's much more his jam than mine. And so, and then I'm much more with the emotions and the spiritual part of things, and so we were going to pull all of that together. So I love there are some apothecaries here locally. In Arizona, there's a lot of different things. And I love that you're doing that there. Now, is your place, do you have a physical location
I don't. I operate
online?
residentially.
Oh,
I offer consultations too, and that's the thing is I offer to all my local community. I am very involved within our farmers market here. It's our local county farmer market. And it's a great way to connect with the people who are a little bit more holistically minded, who are a little bit more health centered, who are looking for an alternative.
yeah.
Um, it's it has been a great opportunity to educate the community, and to offer products that give them the relief that they're looking for. I have a lot of people that come to me for my magnesium body butter. It's I say superior in quality to all of the magnesium creams or oils that you'll ever use because of how well it absorbs, but how much love and care that I put into each ingredient that literally goes into it. I pack it full of the literally the color of the magnesium body butter is blue from the amount of blue tansy that I put in it. But you think that's blue. I add more frankincense in there to really power pack that. And we're always working on new oil extraction methods for like a boswellic acids, to add in even more benefit to some of these products.
I love that. It's so exciting because one of the challenges I had moving back to Oklahoma is a lot of the spiritual types that I met in Oklahoma just were not my vibe
Right.
and at all. And what I found was I was having a challenge finding spiritual people in Oklahoma or holistic people in Oklahoma who
Mhm.
actually were really coming from the heart and also doing their own work, which is so important. I know I had a client when I had a local center in Moore. We had done a meditation circle one night, and nobody really seemed to understand what I would go through in order to prepare myself, prepare the space, whatever, for everyone, to receive everyone. And she ended up going to someone else's circle that they did one night, and she was like, oh, that was like not the same at all. And I said, well, tell me more. She said, well, they were running late, everything felt chaotic and hectic, and it just wasn't this. And I said, well, if you're a real true holistic practitioner and you're not just kind of doing this on the fly, like something sound like a fun thing to do, there's a lot more involved to holding space for people and creating amazing products for people. I mean, from the heart, but also from the energetics, just everything. And I don't think people really get that until they actually experience the difference.
Mhm.
And I love that. I love the way your eyes light up when you talk about what you do and what you're doing, because to me, that's what makes the difference. It's that difference that somebody can't quite put their finger on, but they know that it's different, you know?
Thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. That really means a lot. I genuinely have a passion for what I do and for offering, quality products to people that genuinely make a difference in their lives, that they're not just, tossing around.
Yeah.
Let me grab my charger real quick. Give me just
Okay,
1 second.
sure,
It's right here.
sure. Yeah, I see. It looks like tinctures and stuff on the table behind you.
So those are actually, these are all of my essential oils. I put, when I get my oils, a lot of times I'll put them in 2 ounce tincture bottles, uh,
Uh-huh.
just because it allows me to blend and make things a little bit more freely without having to, you know,
Yeah,
have that. It's nice.
I love it. I love it so much. Well, that is super cool. So, yeah, well, as with everyone I have on I like to put their links and stuff in the description so that if anybody wants to reach out. So if someone, because we're now have an international kind of thing going on here, which is very exciting. So, and who knows when someone may watch this episode,
Right.
and so do you have the ability at this time to work with people who are out of state if you were going to ship or something like that?
I do. So on my website, I actually offer consultation for both the aromatherapy aspect, if you're more interested in dealing with essential oils. And then I also offer consultation for herbalism, if you are more interested in dealing with herbs, tinctures, a salve, something like that. And I do offer that by Zoom. So whenever you go in to actually purchase that product, you go as you would normally check out, and then it'll actually give you an option to schedule that Zoom with me.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. I love that. I'm curious, are you still doing card readings?
Um, so I actually don't offer card readings anymore.
Yeah.
I genuinely took a whole step back from any divination work, if you
Mm-hmm.
will. I wasn't being I did wasn't felt called to it
Yep.
anymore.
Got
You know,
it.
I know that I offered really great readings to a lot of individuals who needed to hear what
Mm-hmm.
what spirit had to offer at that time.
Yeah.
Um, I just genuinely know that through body work I'm gonna get messages anyways. I hate to say it that way, but I take in a lot of messages from spirit as I'm working with somebody within massage,
Mm-hmm.
and just the way that people's ancestors and things like that interact with them. Still, it is very profound for a lot of people.
I think that's perfect. One of the things I've said with people is, I mean, I have many card decks. I have never, now people have paid me for readings. However, I don't consider myself a reader. I don't, uh, I find them to be tools that sometimes people get stuck on and think that they have to get. And I find them to be a visual tool where I'm claircognizant and clairsentient. I get the messages I need, whatever. Now, every now and then, I will feel that I think there's a message for me. And
Mhm.
I might grab a particular deck and get whatever message and get it in some sort of visual form. But I also believe that there are some people that feel called into that work. There are other people that feel called into that. What I have found a lot, and this is not true across the board, but what I've found a lot is it seems that people kind of start in that area oftentimes and then grow through it
Right,
because they recognize that they don't necessarily need that to connect to
right.
spirit. I've talked to
Absolutely.
people about plant medicine, not in the way of essential oils or herbs, but in the way of like ayahuasca, in the way of this kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's not my path at all. However, if someone comes to me, what I try to talk with them about is some of the work that we can do together. You can actually get to the same place. And what I have concerns about that kind of stuff is that oftentimes, especially if someone has a lot of unresolved trauma, it can throw them into a traumatic state that they weren't ready for. Or I like to say people need to go through steps of the ladder. It takes you way up a ladder when you're not ready to be there yet.
Right. I have two things with that.
Yeah.
Uh, I that is a super very, very good point to make when it comes to dealing with plant medicine.
Uh-huh.
Is understanding where you are at, and identifying in yourself, are you holding on to trauma? Do you have, like we say, bipolar or manic? And I think not one person is exempt from any mental disease or disorder. I think we are all on this little roller coaster of a wave, and every single day we're each on this spectrum somewhere.
Mhm.
Nobody comes the same every single day. And if they do, they're, what do we call them? They're stuck in a program somewhere, genuinely,
Yeah.
you know? But with the plant medicine, it can throw you into that, and that plant medicine is in your face. And having a practitioner or somebody who holds space and offers that is super important. We have a local community here in Oklahoma, and I cannot think of their name to save my life. But they offer plant medicine in this way, knowing that if you have some sort of diagnosis for something, or you are manic, or that is not the right plant medicine for you. There is other plant medicine for you. There are other modalities, or other methods and ways that you can achieve the same thing, you know uh,
Yes.
and for me personally, cacao, mother cacao, girl, I have fallen in love with that plant medicine.
Cacao's amazing. Yeah.
Cacao is amazing, and it is a plant medicine. And to understand that, and allow her to hold space for you while you also hold space and respect for her, it is very bracing for yourself, because it opens your heart so much. I know when I have a challenging day ahead of me, I'm having a cup of cacao,
Mhm.
because it allows me to be more receptive, because I know myself, I'm abrasive, and it's knowing when I'm having a morning like that I need to have a little cup of cacao, and that's okay. It's what's going to help me get through the day.
Mhm. Well, thank you so much. It looks like we are already coming at the end of our time. I can't even believe it. So, do you have any final things that you want to share or say before we end up today?
Absolutely. Remember to be present, be in the moment, love those around you, put your cell phone down, put the distractions away, step outside, go get some oxygen, fresh sunlight, and smell those flowers or some essential oils.
Yeah.
Make sure that you get that positive energy in every single day.
I love it. Thank you, Dylan.
Absolutely.
So, for those watching, thank you so much for watching the Holistic Pathway podcast, where I upload a new episode every Saturday where we talk mind, body, spirit, and entrepreneurship. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.